30 creepy or mysterious seclusion stories, according to Reddit. In the interest of clarity, the question being asked here is Redditors who spend a lot of time in seclusion, at sea or in the air or out in the wilderness, what's the creepiest or most mysterious thing you've seen, found, or experienced? Number 30. I was in the UP, Michigan, about 20 minutes outside Escanaba, with my girlfriend at the time and her family. On the way to her grandparents', we'd pass by this long, abandoned house. I wanted to stop and get a picture and explore. She wanted nothing to do with it, so I went in alone. I spent maybe 15 minutes rummaging around the fossils of someone's life, and then poked my head out the top window. She snapped a photo and said, "Can we get the fuck out of here now?" I went downstairs, and I noticed a door I missed earlier. I opened it, and the dim ambient light spilled down the first 2 steps into the cellar. Everything else wasn't black exactly, but more like the complete absence of everything. My hair stood up, and every cell in my body screamed at me to gently close the door, leave, and never come back there again. And I haven't. But I'm here typing this, and my eyes are watering, and I have goosebumps everywhere. Here's the photo she snapped. Okay. Well, there's that. Number 29. A few years ago, I was driving across the country and stopped at a Prairie Creek Redwood State Park to camp for the night. I got in about 4 p.m. and, eager to experience the redwoods for the first time, started out on a 7-mile trail run through the park. This was early November, so I knew I had about an hour and a half until sunset, which I thought was plenty of time. If you've been to the redwoods, you know the terrain is steep, narrow valleys, and of course, unfathomably giant trees. Twilight came early, and my pace slowed as the light dwindled. Soon I was walking, just barely able to discern the path. This was the start of a situation, but I knew that I would be warm enough if I kept moving, so I concentrated on staying on the path and absorbing the forest's presence. It was incredibly quiet. I perhaps heard 1 or 2 juncos call the whole time, but not spooky. For lack of a better term, I got a sense of peaceful dignity that existed entirely separate from my human-sized concerns. With maybe 2 or 3 miles left in my walk/run back to the campsite, I rounded a bend and came upon a silvery glowing orb right in the middle of the trail. I held my eyes closed. Was this a trick of my night vision and the fading twilight? But the orb was still there when I opened them. After staring at it for some amount of time, I cautiously stuck my hand into it. I didn't feel anything, though I half expected the sensation of heat or maybe a tingling, but I distinctly remember how the details of my hand appeared in that silvery light. I traced the outline with my hands but couldn't bring myself to step through it. Eventually I grew cold and I realized I needed to continue as I was looking for a way around it. I saw the moon just peeking above the ridge. That's when I realized what it was. I had been playing with a moonbeam that disappeared into the depths of the steep valley. The terrain and rising moon had created a sort of illusion that made it look like a glowing orb was floating in the middle of the trail. It was beautiful, but explainable. That said, I will always hold on to how I felt upon rounding the bend and seeing that orb. It wasn't fear, just a keen sense of my surroundings and a sudden openness to experiencing something incredibly beautiful, even if it defied my understanding of the world. Number 28. Not being but my mom, when she was on her teen years, or in her teen years, she used to camp all week near a lake bench. In one of her camping nights, she went to the nearest campfire to ask for some wood or something, and the couple and their little kid were dead in the hut. She called the rangers and they discovered a snake nest under their barracks. Whoa. Number 27. I was in Oahu, Hawaii, hiking the Nuuanu Pali area with my boyfriend one afternoon. It was our first time there and our first time in Hawaii. We had chosen to hike that area because it was beautiful and heard that people see chameleons there sometimes. It was a beautiful hike. It was a very green rainforest with tall trees and bamboo. We decided to get towards the edge of the mountain, towards the cliff, and that's when me and my boyfriend decided to split, since we had the feeling we were getting close. I was alone, hiking for probably about 30 minutes, when I thought I heard somebody running through the forest in my area. I looked around, and then the running sound was followed by silence. I didn't think anything of it, so I decided to sit down and take my GoPro camera out and mess with the settings. I was sitting in silence when I heard leaves brushing through the forest, as if somebody was running through it again. Then it sounded like there was more than one person running, and all I could think was, who chooses to run in muddy, steep forest right next to the edge of a cliff? And then the running stopped again, and there was no one there. I was alone, but I started to feel like there were many people staring right at me. I was starting to get uncomfortable, and I got up and left the area to look for my boyfriend. I couldn't stop thinking about the sounds I heard of the people running and why there was no one there. I googled the area and found out many people had experienced the same thing I did, the sounds of people running through the forest. People believe that they are the sounds of soldiers running through the forest before they fell off the cliff to their death in a battle that took place in the 1700s. I thought I was going crazy, but Googling that place gave me the chills. Number 26. I single-handed a boat from Mexico to North Florida. A few days into the trip, horrible weather, broken stuff, and too many big ships around resulted in 54 hours without sleep. During the last part of that period, a high school girlfriend, a former coworker, and I had a long conversation. Except they weren't there, and I hadn't seen them in 15 years. If this is implying what I think it's implying, perhaps some of you have seen the movie Castaway, where Tom Hanks famously takes a volleyball, gives it a name, and talks to it. And as insane as it technically may be, it's a damn fine way to keep sane, or saner than you might fall or drift is a better term. If you don't find something to keep you tethered to reality. I love this one. Number 25. Felt like I should make a new account for this. I frequently go bushwalking all throughout the Blue Mountains, Australia, and I've done so since I was a kid with my dad. Sometimes for shorter walks I go alone. Yeah, that could be dangerous, and as a woman, I could have added risk of being attacked or whatever, but I carry a couple of knives with me, so I really don't feel threatened, and always bring a satellite phone. I just love and crave the feeling of being entirely surrounded by the bush. It's taking a lot of self-restraint not to make a joke about that. Anyway, around less than 5 years ago, I thought it would be a good idea to do an overnighter walk by myself. Shit idea. The walk was fine. 3 or 4 groups of people came by the other way on the first day. Picked a little area to stay overnight towards dusk. Cut a few ferns back, and I had a space to stick my little one-person tent. I was maybe 30 meters from the track, mostly out of sight, behind the trees and such. The usual wildlife noises were going on as I drifted to sleep, though there was a strange noise. I can only describe it as a bounding sound. Like somebody was sprinting through the bush right past me, but it went by way too fast, with too many footsteps to carry a person that distance. Also, if you've ever been or seen the bush in this part of Australia, you'd know that there isn't much space on the ground to walk freely if you're off the track. You have to at least wade through bushes, ferns, kind of like this. So you can't exactly sprint full speed without eating shit or falling over. I felt a bit uneasy, but thought it was probably just stuff falling from the trees or whatever. Next morning I had a brekkie or breakfast and packed up my things and kept going along the track. Passed a couple of people going the other way, then was alone again for maybe half an hour. Then I heard the sound of a stick being broken, like from someone stepping on it. The sound came from behind me and to my left, away from the track. I turned around to look and nearly fucking died on my feet. A fair distance into the bush was something standing there, looking directly at me. I wanted to believe it was a person, but it wasn't. I can't judge the exact height, but it was obviously very tall. I'd guess 9 feet. Its skin was dark, gray, or brownish. It had a horrifically large head with huge black eyes. I couldn't see a mouth or anything. Its arms and legs were really long. I was almost crying. Tears welled up in my eyes, completely frozen, staring at this creature. It was like my legs were locked in position. The longer the stare went on, between me and the creature, I had this ever-heightening feeling of absolute dread, like nothing I'd ever felt before. The fear built up until I could see my heartbeat in veins in my vision, and I suddenly bolted. I sprinted away, continuing on the track. I ran and was too scared to look behind me. Tears were streaming from my eyes as I was running away, and I didn't stop until I could actually caught up with some people going in the same direction as me. They looked at me and were saying, "Oh my God, are you all right?" And I was fucked from running so hard for so long. I told them I saw something in the bush and asked if I could walk with them the rest of the way. It took me 6 months. But I did start bushwalking again. But I never go alone these days. You couldn't pay me to do it. There's shit out there. Number 24. I was out turkey hunting. We had started hiking at night and had found our spots at about 4 a.m. I was roughly a quarter mile away from my hunting partner, shouting distance. It was pitch black and we were trying to keep our lights off. I kept hearing human footsteps coming from almost random directions. After getting sufficiently uncomfortable, I heard a voice that sounded like it was maybe 10 feet behind me. And then it said, "Hey," and called my name, in my hunting partner's voice. I smelled the smell of coffee and Marlboros. I replied, "Sup," but got no response. I flicked my lighter, but didn't see anyone in the area. And after saying that a couple of times, I shouted for my hunting partner. He called back from what sounded like a quarter-mile away. It started raining in the distance, and heat lightning would occasionally illuminate the field. I saw a tree that looked like a human figure, and after a few moments, it wasn't there. More footsteps around me. After a while, when the sun just started to faintly show, I decided to take a break and was getting a bit creeped out. So I walked the quarter-mile to my hunting partner's tree stand to ask him what he wanted. He said that he hadn't left his spot and didn't walk up to me at any time during the night. Okay. Number 23. Not 100% what OP asks, but the area where it happened to me is all the more creepier given what unfolded. I like going for walks at night because I dislike people, but I've been trying to get in shape for a while, so nighttime is great. For that, I have a route through some fields which are surrounded by cities and even highways. One major city skyline is clearly visible from the paths I take on a normal day/night. Sometimes, however, we get really thick fog because a mountain range is close. One night I was out for a walk and super thick fog hit. It was fun at first. I couldn't even see the end of the light cone from the headlamp that I use, and I barely saw 1 foot in front of the other walking my familiar path. Usually you'd hear the sound of the highway close by, but when it's a busy night, all the time, fuck my brain. But at some point I noticed I didn't hear it anymore. As a matter of fact, I didn't hear anything but myself. There wasn't even wind. Mind you, I was in an open field, no trees to obstruct the wind, and there's usually always some. Knowing the area well, I just decided to keep on my path and soldiered on. After a while, I had a sharp whistling. That in itself isn't too weird. People walk their dogs a lot in those fields, and it was far away. However, the whistling continued to sound through the night, and it seemed to get louder and closer. It was somewhat melodic after a while, more like a song than someone trying to catch the attention of a dog or a person. The really weird part was that it came from the direction of the open and very muddy fields while it got closer and closer. Sure, you could walk there, but you'd make plenty of noise and probably lose a shoe or two trying to wade through that mess. I tried ignoring it, but it creeped me the hell out. So I kept on walking, slowly getting cold despite walking uphill and faster than usual. The whistling kept up, and out of the corner of my eye I could see sometimes a silhouette illuminated by my bobbing headlamp. That's when I started to really freak out. I live in Germany, and we have a tale around here of the Nebelpfeifer, which basically just translates to fog whistlers. There have been some historic accounts of them, with one of the major ones happening during the 30-Year War, where a small village close to Dusseldorf in 1622 was surrounded by heavy fog overnight. Whistling was heard all around throughout the night, and on the next day more than a dozen people were missing, never to be found again. It said that Nebelpfeifer try to lure unsuspecting victims closer, and if you can whistle their favorite tune, you might survive. If not, they'll devour you. They'll stay right at the edge of how far you can see into the fog and never come any closer. They also only really stalk people who are out and about alone, unless there's dire times like many of the wars in Europe, as mentioned above. Remembering that freaked me right the hell out, and I basically speed walked/ran home. Only experienced it once, and probably got the best workout of my life too. Wouldn't recommend it though. These days when the fog hits, I turn on my heel and head back home to work out another day. I'm not great enough of a fool to meddle with shit like this. Smart man. Number 23 was what you just read. Number 22. I was on an outward bound trip in the White River National Forest in Colorado. A part of OB trips is a solo, which can be anywhere from 12 to 48 hours, in which the participants are by themselves with a journal and some snacks. I set up a sweet tent in a tree grouping. It had rained the night before, so the ground was pretty soft. After setting up, I walked around the area. I felt pretty tired and decided to take a nap for 8 hours. I woke up in the middle of the night to a bunch of twigs cracking. I turned on my torch to look to see if it was the instructor or any kind of animal, and I even called out, "Hey, you good?" Not sure why I said that, but nothing. In the morning, I found some big cat tracks right by my tent. Not there when I took a nap. It was really unnerving knowing that the mountain lion was near me when I was sleeping. I told my guides about it, and they got really particular about keeping our food away from where we were sleeping. Number 21. I was a forest fire lookout in the summer during college. I went weeks between seeing another human sometimes. Some of the things I witnessed or I heard while doing that job are just flat out unexplainable. The one that most sticks out in my mind was laying in bed and watching strange lights move through the trees. Figured it was a car with headlights on until it went vertical, up in the air, straight up in the air, and hung for 30 minutes, just sitting 20 to 30 miles away, about parallel with my tower. What was this, 50 years ago, so you don't have any photographic documentation? It'd be one thing if it was there for a couple of seconds and you couldn't get any pictures. Whatever. There's some pictures below. I'll see what it is. I was at an elevation of 7,000 feet. I watched it until it dipped back below the trees and never saw it again. At the time, I was super creeped out, but chalked it up to another one of those dozens of things I've seen that I couldn't explain, and no one would believe. But the next day, another lookout called me on the radio asking if I'd seen the same light. He was much closer to, but on the other side of it. He said that from his perspective, after it dipped below the trees, it landed in an area he knew to be a lake that was only accessible by hiking or horseback. It stood out in my mind because it was the only strange light that summer we couldn't explain away by either planes, balloons, or tricks of light from cars. I have since wondered if it was a drone, but this was before they were really obtainable by hobbyists, and have never seen one with lights that could be seen that bright from 20 miles, or one that will hold a hover for 30 minutes. That was around then. I saved the best for last. The lake where the light settled down into, according to the other lookout, is a pretty popular spot for trout fishing. The summer that lake developed some form of algae or something, that all the fish died off. Ugh. They stocked it with fish, and they just kept dying off. No one remembers this happening before that summer. The summer we saw the light land in it. It was like this for the next 3 summers that I came back as a lookout. No fish could live in it. Just another weird story from my early 20s as a fire lookout. I dug around after I got off work and found some pictures from my time first is the view of the tower I was on. I don't care. I don't care. You don't take jobs like this in the wilderness and not have a camera. Even back then, disposable cameras were something that were available at every friggin' corner store, son. So if it's something you saw, even if it was a shitty picture, you'd have a picture, mate. And people were like, oh, this just sounds like a fucking Firewatch thing, which is a video game. And I hate to get on somebody's balls and, you know, refute their claim. But I don't know, man. 30 minutes is a long time for you to see a light and not do anything about it. You know what I mean? Like, you're working as a dude who's supposed to spot forest fires. You definitely got a camera to take pictures so you can tell people, oh shit, here's one time that I saw this fire and something went down. You know what I mean? You live your life waiting for shit to go down and you don't have tools to document shit going down. I don't know. Seems pretty incredulous. What do the comments say? Nothing interesting. Number 20. This happened once while camping with my then fiance and a friend of ours. Camped out in the woods in the middle of nowhere on a hot July day. Night came and it was full moon, so around midnight we decided we'd take a hike around for fun. We basically hiked a trail for a bit and then turned around and hiked back to the campsite. When we were almost back, we saw a McDonald's cup sitting on the edge of the path. I found this strange as I didn't see the bright red and yellow container when we began the venture, but whatever. However, my buddy decided to open the cup and found ice cubes at the bottom. That day was easily 90 degrees or higher Fahrenheit at night. And it was still in the high 70s, so the ice would not have lasted long. Somebody was definitely out there by us, and we never found another sign of them. No sound of a car, walking, or rustling, nothing. We decided to pack up and go home that night. Smart motherfuckers. Somebody else says, after stabbing you repeatedly, would you like fries with that? 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 There's a song called Tim McGraw called Do You Want Fries With That? What the fuck is going on? Anyway, number 19. When I was maybe 14, I lived in a rural area of British Columbia interior. Maybe that's British Columbia. As young teens do, I got bored easily in my small town, so to alleviate my boredom, my friends and I would routinely explore the surrounding areas and go on long day hikes. There are two instances I can remember being very creeped out on our expeditions. The first time was in the summer. My two friends and I decided to do a hike across several dozen kilometers. We of course prepared adequately, as any group of 14-year-olds would. We had water, a bag of jerky between the three of us. Naturally, we got very hungry as the jerky quickly ran out. To combat this, we decided to cut through the back roads and farmland so we could get to the highway faster, and thusly to food. After about an hour of hungry hiking, we came upon a little village that was all gated up and surrounded by brambles. This itself isn't too creepy. What was creepy was the fact that just inside the gate was a mountain of cattle skeletons and corpses. There seriously would have had to have been 36 bodies in that pile. As kids, we were sufficiently spooked. As an adult, I think logical reasons for a death mountain may have been that the herd was diseased, and this was a way to quarantine. The second time was with the same friends, but we were a few years older. On this adventure, we decided to walk the railroad tracks and gather old rail spikes so we could sell them to the scrapper. After a few grueling hours of hiking and carrying increasingly heavy backpacks, we happened upon... God damn it. Thank you for the subscription, Arctic, I said in the middle of a video that I'm going to be posting later. He's not going to watch this. He's probably subscribing because of a video game. Video that made him laugh. Only to unsubscribe later when he's like, what the hell is this channel? After a few hours of grueling hiking and carrying increasingly heavy backpacks, we happened upon a house. It was very secluded, but from the outside it didn't look abandoned. Curiosity and fatigue got the better of us. We dropped our bags and went exploring. We initially just wanted some water, but we found the front door wide open. Outside there was lots of construction machinery, so we thought maybe they were doing some finishing work inside. We called out but received no reply. So with recklessness, we decided to effectively break and enter. This place turned out to be a dump. It looked like a crack house, old garbage bags and food everywhere. We assumed no one lived there at all. So what did? We decided to snoop around. As we were poking around the ground floor, we heard what sounded like footsteps on the second floor. We called out, but no answer was given. My one friend decided to be brave. I want to see you be brave. And go check upstairs. As he got to the stairs, he called out again. Nothing. So he starts upstairs. I shit you not, as his foot hit the first tread, we heard a music box go off. Alright, kinda creepy. But then we heard a kid's giggle from above. We noped the fuck out of there pretty quickly and ran home. We even forgot our backpacks. What kind of movie shit? You know what I mean? Literally, you're just going up. The music box go off, and you hear something. Get out of there! What the fuck? Number 18. Once, when I was trekking through rural Finland alone to stroll from campsite, I decided to stop at a lakeside. I sat down by the lake in the moonlight, surrounded by trees, and felt very calm for a while. Splashed water on my face and generally refreshed myself. Then after spending some time looking at the water, I looked up and across the lake and I saw a really tall figure, half as tall as the trees. It was really skinny, and I'm pretty sure it looked like it had antlers or horns and really long fingers. Don't think it looked at me. I don't know if I was sleep deprived or something, but I remember I froze for a moment before running back to camp. I honestly remember seeing something. It was large and terrifying, but I was probably just tired and saw a trick of the light. Why don't we get people with fucking body cameras that are connected to a satellite GPS to just go out into the fucking woods? There are people who are literally invested in fame enough to die for it. Just send them out in the woods. We'll see if we can find any of these spooky ass tall creatures wandering around out there. That's where they live because, you know, there's no people out there. We gotta send the people to them. Maybe they'll eat the people. Number 17. I was hiking through the remnants of a remote, long abandoned town and the surrounding area. You brave boy. To get to as far into the woods as I was, you had to cross fallen trees over a creek 3 times. I had just crossed the 3rd bridge and was about 5 miles in, and something blue caught my eye just ahead of me. There was a man, in his 60s at least, wearing blue satin pajamas, sitting in a tree. The closer I got to him, the louder he laughed. It wasn't a maniacal laugh, but it set off all alarms in my head nevertheless. He also wasn't wearing any shoes and looked well-groomed/cleaned. I gave him a friendly nod as I passed, and he just kept laughing. Then it stopped. I turned, he was gone. There was no branch crackling, plants rustling, nothing. He was just gone. Still rubs me the wrong way. The area I was in was a pretty rough hike, very secluded. Not very many people venture as deep as I was that day. No idea what was going on there. Somebody asked what was his riddle. Number 16. I used to spend a lot of time hiking solo. Sounds smart. The creepiest thing I ever saw was another human in camouflage clothes, hiding off the edge of a trail in the brush and trees, and obviously keeping an eye on anyone who happened by. What? He goes on to say this wasn't in an area where hunting was allowed. No thank you. Number 15. When I was a scout in Iraq, I was setting up a concealed observation post when we saw the largest cat through our thermals, like lion/cheetah/leopard. The thermals were fuzzy, but we could identify the size based on the distance with the laser rangefinder. The thing is, all three of those animals used to live in Iraq, but they have been long since extinct in the areas. Intriguing. Number 14. I'm sorry. I was in a remote area surveying populations of various organisms in a mountain stream. One morning, an older man crossed the stream I was standing in. We both froze for a second, and he continued on his way. He didn't have any gear, and it's about a 15 to 20 mile hike from the nearest dirt road. My point is, he wasn't just casually wandering through. Somebody said it sounds like something that happened to me. I was in a remote mountains area surveying trees one morning while walking near my camp. I crossed a stream, and there was this younger man just sitting in the middle of with a little net, staring at me motionless. I froze for a moment, then continued on my way. It was a 15 to 20 mile hike from the nearest dirt road. Point being, he wasn't casually out catching tadpoles. What? Number 13. Typing this quickly because I am out and about to go on my lunch break. I have posted this story before on a since deleted account, so it sounds familiar, that's why. Okay. I grew up in a very rural area in the deep south and spent most of my time riding my horse alone in the national forest and expansive private properties that bordered our house. There was an old abandoned house about 2 miles ride through the woods from me, and I often rode by it on my journeys through the woods. Sometimes I tied my horse up outside, went in and explored inside it, but there was really nothing of interest. There was just trash and things like electric bills from the 80s. I think an old woman used to live there based on some pictures that I found. Time went on, and I went away to college taking my horse with me. I no longer rode past this abandoned house, and after graduating college, my horse and I moved back home for a little while, and I decided to go back and explore it again. So I rode my horse the less than 2 miles through the, or around 2 miles, through the deep woods to get to this house, which itself is probably 1,000 feet from a lonely gravel road that cuts through the forest. It is a very secluded and almost creepy. The house is about 3 miles from a paved road. I am less brave than I used to be, or more cautious and more wise. So when I entered the house, I felt out of place and slightly scared. You guys probably don't know anything about this feeling because you probably don't stick your dick in situations that don't need you, or you don't belong in. But when you are in certain situations that you aren't supposed to be in, yeah, your hair will stand up on your neck. You're stepping into an alien place. Or maybe just a place that you haven't been before, even if you are allowed to be there, let alone places that you're not allowed to be. There's a sensation that will overwhelm you that's literally like as scary as what some people believe is when like a ghost passes through them or something. It's a sensation, and it gives you goosebumps. It makes your hair stand up, and that's probably the thrill that these people live for, but it's still... And I entered the house and I felt out of place and slightly scared. But I used my cell phone light to explore the rooms away. Oh yeah, get a light, so you'll just be really easy to notice by whoever may be in there. A lot was just as I remembered, but right as I was about to leave, I found a calf skeleton in the corner of the entry room. I have no idea how the calf got shut up inside the building, but the doors were firmly shut when I approached it. Also, the screen door opened one way, while the actual door opened the other, so that it was impossible for both to be open at the same or at once for some creature to accidentally wander in. Furthermore, the nearest cow pastures are a good bit away from the house. I left the abandoned house with the image in my head of some deviant cruelly trapping a calf in there for sick purposes. Here are some images. That's the house. Pretty nice picture. Oh man, it's just in the middle of the woods. Oh my god. Oh my god. Fucking brutal. Fucking brutal. Brutal, dude. What the fuck? You're a brave motherfucker. Get out of these people's house. Do you want to play a game? It's the Blair Witch Project. Jeez. Creepy, creepy, creepy. What do you think happens to these people? What do you think happens? What do you think happens to these people? Holy moly. Living out in the woods. I can't deal. Look, man, let's get out of here. Number 12. I usually sit on my own with a clear view of the back garden to work. I once saw my cat come into the garden with an omelet in his mouth. Now, how do you explain that? Somebody said, "R no sleep." I love it. Oh, God. Oh, no. Somebody said, "My cat came into the garden holding something in his mouth, part 2. Oh, no. That's a roast, son. They're saying our sleep is full of bullshit stories, son. Oh, look, as a police officer, this is the one call I can't explain. I'll read that for you guys later. Hang tight. Oh, yeah. Just for you guys. Which over 20 experiences as a paramedic firefighter? With over 20, I still have no explanation for what happened last night. Oh, wow. I don't have time for this. Number 11. So I worked at a ranch in southern Arizona, right on the border. I didn't really consider it to be secluded because I had horses and cows. In hindsight, I guess it was really lonely because sometimes they talk back to me. Anyways, doing fence borders with a guy from another camp, and we had to go down into this dry little riverbed. As we round the bend, we see a bunch of beat up trucks sitting there armed to the teeth. Turns out we ran into some kind of big deal for a cartel. The other guy told me to keep steady, and we just walked straight through them on our horses. Everyone staring at us, looking like they were ready to shoot us up if we made one false move. I asked about it when we got back to the other side without turning into Swiss cheese, and the more experienced rancher told me the cartel only cares about border patrol and cops. They know this is a ranch, and they know we roam around here. They know we don't say much, reason being if they ever assume the ranchers were the snitches, they could easily find our little ranch houses. Only had one person to so many acres. Could have been offed and left there for many days before someone even noticed. With all that in mind, I had a very passive relationship with those kinds. From then on, you don't take kindly to those tabs. Number 10. I was on the bow of a sailboat. That's bow, Kyle. English, ladies and gentlemen. I was on the bow of a sailboat crossing the Atlantic in a pretty heavy winds. Going about 15 knots, the crew had to be stationed alone on the bow in 2-hour shifts at all times, keeping an eye out for anything in the water. About 10 meters away from me, I saw a weird glint in the water, then I realized it's a partially submerged shipping container. Before I had time to even open my mouth, we passed by it, missing it by a few feet. And that's the story of how I nearly got shipwrecked in a storm in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Son of a bitch. That's scary as hell. Now, number 9. I just want to say, I don't care how many times these types of posts come up, I fucking love them and read every comment. Well, I'm reading the comment for you, and you've just wasted what should have been a real comment up here. But I'm a man of the people, and I do this for you, Chosen, because I love you, especially my sexy patrons, who I can't get enough of. And can you believe I actually had to make a second page because some of you are that insane? But one of you's leaving names like Minecraft Kid and Gabriel Reyes, who is the real name of the Overwatch character Reaper, for us nerds. I still love you guys. Just know that, this is what I'm going to have to list you as. Unless you're sending me messages on Patreon to go, I want to be represented as some kind of kangaroo unicorn. Put kangaroo unicorn on that credit page. Where did we start? Number 30? So since I want to give people 30, let's go to 31 and hope that it's not long, thank God. 31, I walked up on a golden retriever humping the fuck out of a cat. Pretty fucking weird, but I let it slide. And then I look at the camera like Jim Halpert. Mysterious and creepy. As we travel up the list, okay, of 30 creepy and mysterious seclusion stories, we reach number 8. On a small sailing boat in the Pacific, sailing south from Panama to Ecuador in the middle of the night. 2 people on deck, the helmsman and me, theoretically on lookout, but really just there to keep the helmsman awake. It's well after midnight and we're away from major shipping lanes. We're somewhere west of Colombia and we haven't seen land or another vessel in at least a day. At least not while I've been awake. For hours, 4 hours on, 4 hours off. And then I see a light off the port bow. It's far off and distant and under the sail, and therefore hard to keep track of, but it's there if it's moving, and it seems to flicker and dim, but gradually I become more aware of it, and it's getting a little brighter bit by bit, and then I realize it's a boat, and it's coming right for us, and by this time I can hear the engine, and I yell to the helmsman, "Hard a port!" Yes, I used old-timey sailing talk in crisis. I have no good explanation for this. So we steer to the left, and the oncoming boat passes on the starboard bow. It's less than 10 meters away. A big rib with a massive outboard engine at the back traveling at full throttle. There's enough light from the moon and our running lights to see that there's only one person aboard, stumped upright over the steering column, and a load of fishing equipment in the back. Then it's gone into the night, still traveling straight at maximum speed. This was over 10 years ago, and to this day I have no idea if that midnight fisherman was alive or dead, if he'd fallen asleep at the wheel, or suffered a sudden heart attack, or what. I don't know if he powered on until the outboard ran out of fuel and was never seen again, or woke up 5 minutes later and steered back home. I don't know what he was doing that far away from other fishing boats. We later saw other lights on the horizon and guessed that they were the fishing fleet, or whether he aimed for us deliberately or it was sheer coincidence that brought him within spitting distance of our tiny boat in the empty sea. I still wonder sometimes. Pretty creepy. That's the real creep treat. Treat when you don't know. When you don't know what the hell going on. Slumped over. Is he dead? Did he come to and steer himself back? Holy crap. Did he shipwreck? Did he sink and drown? Or he's dead already. The ship just sinks. Number 7. I can't buy myself in northern MN, that's Minnesota, right? In northern Minnesota by boat. Found my spot, but saw an unidentifiable creepy blob underwater. I set up my tent, etc. Went fishing, but curiosity led me to the blob. Oh my fuck, sorry. I went fishing, but curiosity led me to the blob again, and I finally figured out is a large dead deer contorted and missing its abdomen. Later I noticed bark scraped off a tree about 8 feet up, a bear sign. It was getting dark. And somebody says, and as you looked closer at the deer in the water, you noticed your reflection. You are a bear. What the hell? Number 6, ladies and gentlemen. I was 13 and on a week-long camping trip. There were 2 adults and 5 other kids my age. One night, we spent all day kayaking and got caught in the deluge that threw off our whole schedule for the day. We couldn't quite make it to the location we were supposed to set up camp for the night, but before sunset, so we went. Jesus Christ. We couldn't quite make it to the location where we were supposed to set up camp for the night before sunset, so we settled a few meters off of the river. We were so exhausted that the adults didn't even want to build a fire. Since we didn't have much light and it was hot, they told us that we didn't have to build our shelters. We could just lay out in the sleeping bags. Everyone put their sleeping bags near a clearing that was created by a fell tree. But I saw the hole created by the roots, and throughout that there was possibly creepy crawlies living in it. So I set my sleeping bag a little further back, about 4 meters away from the clearing. I woke up a few hours later to these rapid clicking sounds and sniffing. Thanks to the internet, I later identified it as deer noises. There were a bunch of them. The clicking grew louder and closer and was surrounding me on all sides. I had my flashlight, but I didn't want to shine it because I was afraid to scare the deer creatures because I thought they would trample me. The most vocal deer then stepped on my sleeping bag and eventually sat down on it. I could hear the other deer get comfortable too. After a while, I allow myself to peek, not wearing my glasses, and I see maybe 15 deer creatures all just watching the other campers. After several hours, I fell asleep and woke back up as they were leaving at sunrise. So the deer came and laid with you? That's so cute. Well, not laid with you in that way, guys. Uh-oh. Number 5. Ugh. You can do this. Driving through the middle of Montana one night, going about 100 miles per hour, passed something on the side of the interstate that looked like a mangled body. Turned around at the next pass, came back, definitely a body. Put my lights on and tried to call 911 on my cell, no reception. Got in the car to see if I could pick up cell phone reception. Lights were still on. Nothing there but the blood splatters. Drove away quick. Somebody said, never get out. Never, dude. Never. Somebody else says, seriously, don't get out of the fucking vehicle, especially by yourself. That's a new way to spell especially. At night with no reception. That's how your face winds up on a milk carton and you're plastered over the 6 o'clock news. 6 o'clock news. Somebody said that's how your face ends up being used as a mask. Oh my God, guys. Wow. Number 4. Seriously. I was living in a dirt floor cabin for about 6 months. I would pack a lunch and hike out half a day in random directions. One day I found an abandoned hotel with an attic full of bats. The old kitchen was full of taxidermy. Not abandoned old taxidermy, current taxidermy, in various states of finish. There was a closet with stacks of dead birds, tools, woodworking tools, and glass for the display cases. Okay, oh, come on. I noped out of there in a hurry. I took my brother there later because he didn't believe me, so I have a witness. We can all trust your brother's word. Number 13. Is way below. Number 3 is right here. Out at sea late at night, maybe 2 a.m., and just seeing a fin pop up above the water near your boat in the complete silence and black of the ocean. Uh-oh. Somebody said, fuck that. Number 2, guys. I live in the only house down a country road. Everything else is pasture land and a national forest for several miles. At about 3 a.m., my 3 large dogs go absolutely nuts barking, which sends my husband and I flying out of bed to check on our livestock, assuming coyotes were in the yard. Before we could even get our shoes on, we hear muttering on our front porch. He grabs his rifle and whoever it is starts knocking on the door, with no real urgency, but more like a casual visitor. I had my cell phone already dialing the cops and my husband slid up to the peephole. A woman, right around in her late 20s or early 30s, was standing outside, patiently waiting a few minutes and gently knocking on the door, not fidgeting or nervous, not being aggressive. My husband said, "Ma'am, the cops are on the way. If you need help, they'll be here in just a few minutes, and you're more than welcome to sit on the swing right there and wait on them. But if there's anyone with you, we are armed in here and will not hesitate to shoot if anyone tries to get in the house." He said she kind of smiled, not creepy, but like she was glad her knocking woke somebody up. "That's okay, sir. I just wanted to let you know the thing in the woods is coming, and he'll be here soon. Good luck." What? He said she turned around. Every now and then she'd get a little bit lonely and she'd never come around, and walked down the driveway like she hadn't a care in the world. The cops looked all over the place and couldn't find her. It's a 10-minute drive to our driveway from the main road, with no houses until you get into town. Another 20 minutes away. Freaked me out for weeks. That's okay. I just wanted to tell you, to let you know that the thing in the woods is coming, and he'll be here soon. Good luck. No sleep wishes it had some shit as decent as this. You know what I'm talking about? Wow. As we reach number 1 on the list of 30 creepy, mysterious seclusion stories, number 1 reads, more mysterious than creepy. We were camping in Montana near Yellowstone Park in a small campground. It was the off season and there were maybe 5 other people there, including a couple 3 to 4 spots down, who had a large dog with them in their RV. I walked by the dog and he was friendly, so I petted it and talked to it and went on my way. Later that night, I am sitting watching the sun and reading on my Kindle when a cold nose bumps under my arm, like dog does when it wants attention. I figured it was the dog and started scratching his head. Before I could look around, my friend came around the corner and froze with a look of fright on his face. I was scratching the head of a pretty big wolf. I had no idea what to do. I didn't want to keep touching it, but I didn't want to stop and piss it off either. I scratched him for maybe 5 to 10 more seconds, and it just looked at me like, "Thanks, bro," and walked off into the woods. We went to a hotel that night. Somebody said, "That's amazing. I would be both terrified and in heaven. I've always wanted to pet a wolf." You furries. Guys, I love you, but I've got things to do today that I hope goes well. I hope you enjoyed this list. The date is 7/12/2017, and it seems that there's like a big thing going on with net neutrality. They're trying to push it, they're trying to destroy it again. They're trying to destroy it. So, do your part if you haven't already. I'd like to personally thank my amazing and incredible patrons. You guys are really giving me the strength, motivation, and inspiration to just exist in a higher form. So I love you, and I'll see you soon. If there's anything that you need, let me know. And I'll catch you guys soon. Love you. Later.